I've talked a lot about Ghostbusters 2016. A lot. A lot more than I think I probably should have. And here I am again talking kind of about it, but talking about it in a way that I didn't quite ever foresee happening. Melissa McCarthy is an actress who I do very much like. I have ever since seeing her in Mike and Molly in 2010. I've been a fan of her movies, been a fan of everything else she's been involved in. I do think she is a comedic delight. I'm not a big fan of her actions in regards to the lead up to Ghostbusters 2016, nor am I happy with how she dealt with the fallout from the movie, the fact that it bombed, and then even years later, still trying to say that it was ruined by men who hate women, who all live in their mother's basements and don't want women ruining their childhood. It's an annoyance because I think deep down she knows it's not true, and she says it because it pushes a narrative. And I'm not a fan of that. But I was really kind of waiting to see what her thoughts were going to be. Really, what her thoughts were going to be about Ghostbusters 2020. We know what Leslie Jones says. Leslie Jones was all like, that's something Trump would do. Okay. That made no damn sense. Everyone kind of like ratioed to her on it. Paul Feig came out to defend her, but then Paul Feig also defended Jason Reitman. One of those weird kind of moments where you're like, okay, what exactly do I take away from this? How exactly do I process this? But Melissa McCarthy has finally actually spoken her mind about this movie. She breaks her silence in this new article from Heroic Hollywood. How exactly does Melissa McCarthy feel about the new Ghostbusters coming out in 2020? Well, she says here, I'm for anybody who's making movies. I've talked to Jason about it. He's just always had this idea and goes back to a world where the guys exist. And I'm like, I want to see that. I'm all for it. I say, like, tell the story. Holy shit. Not at all what I was expecting, considering just 2-3 months ago, she was going out there saying that Ghostbusters 2016 was crapped on by men who hate women. And she says this in an interview. It's not like it's video. It's out there. And all the other times she made the comments about the film going into it a couple years ago. It's one of those weird things where you're like, why is she backing off of this? Why is she backing off of crapping on this movie when her co-star crapped on it, kind of walked it back, but still crapped on it? Really, really, really makes you think about where things are going. Now, there is in fact an IDW comic that came out that's kind of a sequel to the film, in which case Holtzman goes through kind of a portal and ends up back in the alternate 1984, or really Ghostbusters Prime. But it's, 2016 Ghostbusters Prime. And the old Ghostbusters are old and they work together, and Egon teaches her how to use the containment unit and how to use the proton packs and everything else. And that's the comic. And I almost kind of thought to myself when I heard about the plot line for that would probably be the second movie, if it was going to actually happen. I mean, Ivan Reitman was on stage at Comic-Con talking about how they were working on another movie, that Ghostbusters, the video game, was no longer considered canon. It felt like this was ultimately what was going to be happening, because the movie, while it didn't make enough to be considered profitable, it does still have a relatively rabid fan base. That fan base attacked Jason Reitman the other day, because he admitted that this movie is going to be a love letter to the fans and given back to the fans. And they were like, we're fans. Well, you're fans of Ghostbusters 2016. That's like saying you're fans of RoboCop 3. Everyone's like, yeah, but RoboCop 1 was better. But you really, really like RoboCop 3. Doesn't really make a lot of sense now, does it? So part of me is wondering, why the change? Why the change? Why did she decide that she wanted to approach it from a different perspective? Why did she not want to attack it? Well, the Oscars are this weekend. She's up for Best Actress. She did just win Worst Actress at the Razzies for the Happy Time Murders, and she could be winning Best Actress tonight for Can You Ever Forgive Me? And believe it or not, I'd like to see her win. Again, I'd like to see her win. So she probably doesn't want negative headlines. She probably doesn't want a big negative social media push on this, what could be the biggest night of her career. That's one aspect of it. Probably Occam's razor tells me that's pretty much the most accurate. But it also could be that there's more going on behind the scenes. Oh, she talked to Jason about it. Is Jason pinching the idea of having there be a bridge between the two franchises in order to then complete it and have it be part of one big, larger world, a larger universe that Dan Aykroyd's been pushing for years? Remember, back in around 2014 or something around those lines, Dan Aykroyd talked about a Ghostbusters cinematic universe, even having Ghostbusters in high school. Dan Dan Aykroyd's a bit of a weird guy, but, he's always really wanted this. And when Ghostbusters 2016 failed, Ghost Corps took over the franchise with Ivan Reitman running the show and working on an animated movie and working on the VR thing, I guess, as well as this, this new movie. So I'm kind of speculating that we're not done with Ghostbusters 2016. Melissa McCarthy had no trouble throwing detractors of that movie under the bus for almost 3 years. So when her franchise was DOA, and she's not given the opportunity to go back into the world on a public-facing way right now, why wouldn't she trash the remake? Or at least criticize it as, well, I wish we could do ours, blah, 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 blah. But when she says here, I'm for anyone who's making movies. I've talked to Jason about it. He's always just had this idea that goes back to the world where the guys did exist. And she's like, well, just tell the story. And she says she wants to see it. And I think it's because he wrote this movie in secret. He wrote it over the course of a year. He submitted it to Sony, the first draft. Sony said, good, go make it. I do think that he's going to find a way to tie the two universes together as a way to try to salvage what was 2016's utter failure. But I don't want that. I don't want us to go back to that world. I tried to like the movie. I've seen it a few times. I can't. It's done so much irrevocable damage in regards to the old school fans being completely crapped on by the cast and the director and the studio head that any attempt to try to salvage it by bridging the two worlds together is just going to cause more BS. So while she might have a good thing in her, she might be coming out and saying this very politically neutral response, I can't help but wonder if it's just because she doesn't want to take away from what she's going through tonight. And I don't blame her. I don't blame her one bit. It's almost like a non-answer, but still being supportive. Typical Hollywood Q&A stuff. But anyway, I'll leave it to you guys. Your thoughts on this one. Do you think that she's just being nice? Do you think that she is seething with rage over not being able to do her sequel like Leslie Jones was? Or do you think that there's something cooking in the pipeline that we could in fact be seeing a bridging between Ghostbusters 1984 and Ghostbusters 2016? Let me know your thoughts below in the comments. I'll talk to you guys later. Have yourself a great day and peace out. Hey, thank you so much for watching the video. I greatly appreciate it. While you're here, feel free to check out that subscribe button. It help with the channel out. Or you can watch any of the newest videos and make sure that you're caught up to date with what's going on in Hollywood and entertainment. So that way, when you're at work tomorrow, you can wow your friends with the information you learned from watching these videos. That's right. I said it. Subscribe.